Leon Panetta with us now on what he makes of all of this, a former Defense Secretary, former CIA Director, former White House Chief of Staff. Leon, very good to have you back with us.
Good to be with you, Neil.
Does this smell like a government shutdown to you, or the makings of one?
Well, it certainly smells like we're headed towards a government shutdown, particularly when people like Mike Tucker think that it's likely to happen. But, you know, it's really important for both Democrats and Republicans to understand that they have to function. They've got to be able to work together to be able to continue funding the government. That's just a basic responsibility. And I think there's too much going on with you know, these parties using names and other things to try to kind of force this thing to somehow be pushed through without really focusing on the fact that it's going to ultimately take both sides to vote for a CR in order for government to continue. That's the bottom line, no matter how you look at it.
All right. Now, Secretary, I think you were referring to Mike Turner, the House Intelligence Committee chairman, who fears we could be looking at a shutdown. But let me step back and look at what this could mean for President Zelensky, who is in the White House right now talking to President Biden. He probably has reason to worry that the generous support his country has enjoyed by the United States, you know, could be a thing of the past. He'll still get aid, maybe not as much. Maybe it's going to be scrutinized more. What do you think?
Well, there's no question that this is a pivotal moment. You know, Ukraine is on the front lines. They're fighting a tough battle against the Russians, but I think are successful in pushing the Russians back. So it really is important for the United States and our allies to be able to continue to provide needed support to Ukraine. Is it going to be challenged by some members? Of course. Should there be tighter controls to make sure that the money is being spent effectively? Sure, that ought to be considered as well. But the bottom line is that ultimately both sides ought to agree on providing the aid that Ukraine needs in order to defeat Russia.
But what does defeat Russia mean? I don't mean to be simple about it, Secretary, but Jim Jordan was on with Martha McCallum in the last hour and you know, said there was no clarity on the goal here. Well, of course, Mr. Zelensky has made it very clear what his goal is: to get Russia the heck out of his country, including in Crimea. That might be wishful thinking. That seems to be a stated goal. We have not agreed on that officially. We've not heard words like that from the President of the United States. I think our policy has been what Ukraine wants to deem this war over. Is it your sense, and as a former defense secretary and a former CIA director, that our goal here in supporting Ukraine is that Russia is out of Ukraine entirely?
Well, I think that ultimately that's a decision that's up to Ukraine. They're the ones that are spilling blood. They're the ones that are fighting this war.
No, I understand that, and I wasn't clear.
They're the ones that ultimately have to determine.
What does that mean? I mean, because that's their goal. I mean, they want, obviously, Russia out. We have since, you know, many people have been raising up. Maybe the White House doesn't want that as long as the war can end, you give Russia something. I mean, that's what obviously people are talking about. Is that our shared vision? Obviously, Ukraine wants it out entirely. Maybe we have a different one, and the president hasn't outlined that. And that, you know, is a troublesome feature here.
Neil, I think the bottom line is this, that it is very important for Ukraine to continue to put pressure on Russia and to have a breakthrough that divides the Russian forces. Why is that important? Because it will then send a signal to Putin either to withdraw or to negotiate. That's the bottom line. Our goal, it would seem, is to try to move towards negotiations that gives the Ukrainians the leverage they need in order to secure a lasting peace. That's what this is all about.
So let me follow up on that. if it ends up that in order to end all of this, the precipitant might be what's unraveling now on the Hill, where we're going to draw back some of that support, or it's going to be more closely scrutinized, and that will force Mr. Zelensky to come to a conclusion in this war that he might not have entertained before.
Well, I hope we don't come to that point. I hope that ultimately the Congress does agree to provide that aid. And I'll tell you why. Because, I mean, there are some Republicans who think that you can be weak on Russia and somehow tough on China. If we hold back, if we don't provide assistance to Ukraine, we are sending a message of weakness to the world, a message that we're going to back off of supporting Ukraine in the battle against Putin. And make no mistake about it, Xi will consider that a sign of weakness by the United States, and it'll change his mind with regards to whether or not to go into Taiwan. So people need to understand that what happens on Capitol Hill in these next few days will determine a lot about what happens with foreign policy in these next few months.
Leon Panetta, thank you very much. I apologize for those interruptions. We're on a delay, and I was ruder still in the middle of it. But thank you very much for coming. Leon Panetta.
Good to be with you, Neil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.